Hey everyone, this is Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do 2 more books for May to wrap up the month, and then I'll move on to June. I have 11/22/63 and The Overnight Guest. And I didn't add some clear stickers like I do a lot of the time. I wanted to find some paper, and I found a really old scrapbooking basic gray paper. If anybody remembers those, that was like the best company to get paper from. So I went ahead and used 2 different pieces, and in the paper there was a number 1 and a finger pointing. So I really liked those little details in the paper. I also had a 3x4 card that I just punched out a few shapes to add to my snowy page, and it'll help with the different clusters that I want to build. I also grabbed this stamp set that I use all the time. I found so many uses for this stamp set. I think it's called Thoughts on Today, but it just works so well for so many of the books that like crazy things happen or wild things happen. I also grabbed another stamp set that had Control Z in it because I felt like that was applicable to this time travel book, 11/22/63. So I am gonna place down my book covers and then my paper strips and finally figure out where I want these different stamped phrases to go. I did trim the paper strips just a little bit, but I'm really glad that I chose those paper strips because I think it's just something different to do for my reading journal. I will say it'll of course add to the bulk of the journal, but that's okay. Most weeks I try to stick to washi and clear stickers. So I am adding in the stamped phrases and my different clusters, and then I will go from there to bring it all together. I even grabbed a house stamp set from Studio Calico because I knew I could stamp a house, and so I'm excited to wrap up May with these books because both of these books I did not know if I was going to like them. The Overnight Guest was for Read Around the USA, and it was obviously a very winter-heavy book. And lately, I've been preferring my thrillers on audio, so I wasn't sure. But it turned out to be a really fantastic book. And then I'd never tried a Stephen King book before, but I loved this one. The audio was just amazing. I loved it. It was part of my 12 Friends challenge. I did decide to grab a clock stamp, and that way I could add that to my 11/22/63 side because it has to do with time travel and it works perfect. Over in the corner, I wanted a clock, but I had to take it off the acrylic block in order to stamp it, and then I smudged it a little bit by pushing down too hard, but I'm going to add a stamped phrase right there and kind of fix that little mistake. I am stamping in the hour and minute hands, not really paying attention to the time in particular, just making sure that I stamp those. And I also want to stamp, well, that didn't go quite as planned because that's very applicable here. And I want to figure out where my rating box is going to go. And I finally decide on right above the book cover. And lastly, I'm just going to stamp a little stamp cluster of dots in black ink just to add a little bit of movement to the spread. And I also will stamp some phrases that I can cut out later on, like thriller, suspense, really, that this was so crazy, and the Control Z. So I wanted some stamped phrases right on the paper, and some I just wanted to be able to cut out. I also want to make the houses. I love this stamp set, but I will admit I'm so silly because sometimes it's a little tricky for me to figure out which stamp goes with which house, but that's okay. I'm going to figure it out. And right now I am reading Happy Place and listening to the echo of old books, which I found through Kindle Unlimited. It's an interesting book. It's taken me a long time to like get into it, but I think I'm into it. I don't know. I'll let you know how it goes. But again, as always, I'd love to know what you guys are reading and what you're looking forward to reading. It's always so fun to read your comments about what you're reading. I added in the dot stamp again to the right hand side just to add, something similar between the 2 pages. Also grabbed a snowflake stamp so I can add that since, like I said, this whole book takes place in a snowstorm. Somewhat. I don't want to give away everything, but somewhat it takes place in a snowstorm. I am going to fussy cut out the different phrases that I have. I decided on thriller suspense for the right hand side, but it could also work for the Stephen King book, but I'm going to go ahead and do historical fiction for the Stephen King book. And then I have the arrow that says really, because that is very applicable to this book. Both the books really, but the arrow one I just wanted to put over there, and Control Z will go on the left hand side. And then I can start on my synopsis. And like I tell you guys every time when I do these one-page spreads, it's so hard to get everything down on just one page, but I'm gonna make it work. I will say that for the 11/22/63 book, I did not add quotes. I literally ran out of room, and I could have like ripped up the book cover and done a flip up to add some quotes, but I'm not gonna stress about it. I'm just gonna keep moving forward. So I almost have everything adhered down for my different clusters, and then I can start on the synopsis, and I'll grab my iPad. I had someone comment asking like how I come up with my reviews, and I'm gonna be honest, I load up my Goodreads and I put up, you know, their description, and that kind of helps me to jumpstart what I want to say. And sometimes I paraphrase what they say, but rarely. I just want that open so that way it can, like I said, jumpstart what I'm gonna say and what I want to say. So that helps a lot to have Goodreads open. And then of course the thoughts are all my own. So the synopsis for this one is obviously on November 2nd, JFK was killed and the world was forever changed. Jack Epping is back in 2011 and is an English teacher and is just living an ordinary life. That is until he is given the opportunity to stop the JFK assassination. He will go back to a simpler time of root beer and a cold mug, Lindy hopping, and classic American cars. Jack will meet and come to love Sadie, who adds to the complexity in the best and the worst ways, and he will encounter Lee Harvey Oswald. Choices will be made, and consequences will change history. And that is just a very small overall synopsis, but this book is so complex and so many different layers. And I listened to the audio, and the narrator has a fantastic voice and just did a really fantastic job bringing this whole book to life. And it didn't feel like I was reading a Stephen King book, like horror, you know, because I know he's known for horror, but this one didn't feel so much horror. So I really, really enjoyed it. It was like 31 hours, and I told you guys several times that I lost the book. Or ran out of time for my audio, but I got it back and I finished it. And I also watched the show with my husband a long time ago, and I really love how the book kind of explained the consequences for certain choices without giving anything away. I really loved how the book did that. And then there was even an end note by Stephen King. Like Stephen King was talking and did an end note about basically the climate of the world during this time. That was really interesting and cool to have at the end of the audio. So thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm glad a friend recommended it to me. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 5 stars, and the book number is 62 out of 100. Genres are historical, time travel, and fantasy. So it worked out to have that little box right above there. And so yeah, I just have to flip back and count the books because I always forget. Like I can never remember. So I'm just going to go back to the beginning and count it, and it winds up being 62. So having a really good reading year, but I will say that reading in summer is harder. I don't know. Leave a comment in the comments section and let me know what you guys think. What season is the hardest to find time to read in? All right, The Overnight Guest. Wiley Lark is a true crime writer who goes to an isolated farmhouse to finish her next book. This would be a cozy place to get things done. But 20 years ago, there was a double murder. It happened, and then a girl disappeared as well. As a massive winter storm rolls in, Wiley finds herself trapped. Then she finds a child out in the snow and everything changes. So, dun dun dun, that's how it feels, right? When you, especially if you just go to Goodreads and read the description, it's like dun dun dun, you don't know what's gonna happen. It's bananas. This is a very atmospheric book where I could easily picture the farmhouse and the storm, and I think the author did an incredible job weaving storylines together. Don't want to give away too much. And the characters in the book are incredibly strong despite the horrors that they have faced. Definitely kept me on the edge of my seat, and I did not see how the outcome was going to turn out. I had no idea. I'm going to go ahead and fill out the rating. I put 5 stars, but I really think that this is more 4.5. And then the book is 63 out of 100, and obviously the genre is thriller. I did have room for a quote, so I put, "It isn't the dark you should be afraid of," the girl thought. "It's the monsters who step out into the light that you need to fear." So I love that quote. I feel like it's perfect. And like I said, I wound up really enjoying this thriller, and I'm glad that I picked this one for my read around the USA. So I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing this spread come together. I would love a thumbs up, or if you're new to my channel, a subscribe. All right, I hope you have a great day. Bye.